Welcome, guys. This is Beyond the Bid Leadership Insights. I am George Barber, and I have an amazing guest today, one of my favorite people in procurement. She has over 25 years of experience. Um, she has served on so many different boards, has been so instrumental to the procurement community, to myself. She has just about every certification, degrees, credentials that you can think of. But more importantly, she's a great person. Today, our guest is Carrie Mathis. Morning, Carrie.
Good morning, George. Thank you so much for having me. Thanks for the kind words. I'm excited to be here with you today.
Absolutely. Thanks for gracing us. As everybody knows, this is a leadership segment where we talk about different things in leadership. We try to give firsthand experiences, actionable strategies that could help procurement practitioners out there become better leaders. And I cannot think of a better person to talk to. And it's the second episode, but the first time with a guest than you. So I really appreciate it. And so today we're going to talk about a couple of things more centered around the culture, the workplace, different leadership strategies, and really to talk about the things that you've done. So uh, we're going to get right into it if that's okay.
Absolutely.
All right, great. All right, so the first question I have for the people's benefit is um, what leadership approaches have you found most effective in creating a positive and engaging work environment for your team?
So I think, George, when I think about positive and work environment and being there for your team members, right? Like it starts with me, and I take that responsibility very seriously. I lead with empathy, and I want to focus really on building authentic relationships with the team members. I think that's been the most effective approach for me as a leader of the team. I think as leaders, we always have to be mindful that people, they want to be cared for and supported, right? Like intrinsically we want to have that, and that's, we spend a lot of time together with our staff and employees, and so I want to prioritize getting to know each team member, not just as a worker, but as the whole person. Like, what are their strengths? What are their goals? What are their challenges? What motivates them, right? Because if I'm to help try to get them progressed in their professional growth, I need to really understand all of those components so that I can support them in meaningful ways to help them develop professionally. And so the process really starts with shortly after they're onboarded. I schedule one-on-one meetings with them, and I spend time with them to really get to know them as a person, not just professionally, but I also want to know about their family. I want to know about their hobbies. I want to know what interests them, really like what makes them tick. I want to learn about them as a person. Like authentically, I want to learn about them as a person. I think that's a good trust builder amongst
Yeah.
us, right? Because we are developing a relationship. We become the work family, right? And so family is part of that, the work family. And so we want to make sure that we're kind of building that relationship of trust. But it also affords them the opportunity to get to know me, right? Like they've made a choice to come work at Orange County. Like it's not that's just that we selected them, they also selected us, right? And so it needs to be a two-way relationship. So I want to give them the opportunity to get to know me. I want them to ask questions if they have questions, and really just develop that relationship based on trust. And it's really been my experience. I've been doing that for over a decade now. It's been my experience that really cultivating that trust, showing that I genuinely care, and creating safe space for open dialogue helps to foster a sense of belonging and support for them, right? I want them to always know I'm available to them, to ask questions, not to be afraid of me because of any sort of position I hold. I work alongside them. And it's important for me to articulate that to them, that I work alongside them, that I'm a team member with them. And I think setting that tone and just kind of creating that relationship of trust and that we're in this together really helps to provide some comfort to people coming in, some confidence,
Yeah.
and creating a positive work environment for them.
Yeah, that's excellent. I just with that you saying made me think about something that I read. Can't remember when it was, but it was talking about the importance of leadership and those who lead, like having that trust building and making deposits in the relational bank. And it was like the first time I heard that phrased, and it's really like checking in your team and not the arbitrary like, hey, how you doing? but like the like, hey, learn a little bit more about their personal life because um, I think if you're going to try to set like a good culture, like you mentioned, like you have to have trust within your team, and um, you have to do that by trying to build a relationship. So um, yeah, I definitely see where you're going with that, and that's great. Um, all right, so the next one is: can you share a specific initiative or policy you've implemented that significantly enhanced employee satisfaction or morale?
Yeah, so last year we launched a program called Impact, and Impact stands for Initiative for Managing Procurement Advancement and Continuous Transformation. That's what the acronym stands for.
Hmm.
We've recently been recognized by FAPO with a 2025 Best Practice Award for the Impact program. So I'm kind of excited to share this information with you. The program was designed to enhance operational efficiency, but also to develop leadership within the organization and be able to contribute meaningfully to the advancement of public procurement. So the premise of the program is really to empower individuals to drive meaningful change while enhancing operational efficiency and fostering their professional growth, because that's kind of a key tenet that we subscribe to in our leadership team, is making sure that everybody's growing professionally, right? We had so many projects on the list, George, that it's like, a few of us we just couldn't get movement on them. It was too much, right? So we decided to stand up the Impact program, and at the core of it, it's really built on the idea that when talented professionals are given the tools, the support, the opportunities to lead, that they really can achieve extraordinary results. And so by assigning team members to carefully curated projects that align with their skills and aspirations, again, we need to understand what their skills, and more equally as important, I should say, is what is their aspirations. Then
Yeah,
the program created an environment where participants, they're not only challenged to excel, but they're also really encouraged to grow beyond their perceived potential, right? So like a lot of us tend to get comfortable and kind of think, well, some people may lack confidence to kind of take another step. It might be scary, and if you lack confidence in these things, like you may never find out what your potential is, right? So we're kind of mindful about what their perceived potential is and wanted to give opportunities kind of in a safe space to step outside of that and really
yeah.
kind of challenge themselves in a meaningful way. So there were a lot of projects, George. We had over a dozen in 2024, some of which have been completed. Some are still ongoing. They range from technology-driven process improvements to outreach initiatives that reduce barriers for small and minority-owned businesses. Like these are all important initiatives that we had that were just kind of building up, right? And we just couldn't move the needle with a few of us. And so we decided, like, let's engage everybody in a structured environment and have them come to the table and really empower them to be able to make some change. So it served really two purposes, not just to advance those organizational goals, but also it was a nurturing opportunity to enhance their leadership capabilities, even if they didn't hold a position in leadership, right?
Yeah.
And so it was a structured project management framework that we employed by Impact. We used tools such as creating project charters. We had work breakdown structures. We had comprehensive evaluations. We wanted to ensure that every initiative was approached with discipline and clarity. So it was very structured, but it also exposed the team to a really high level procurement management principles, and it empowered them to lead collaborative teams to execute and implement those process improvements. But in addition to those results, the team, kind of back to, I think, the purpose of your question, the team felt a sense of pride for their contributions. They felt a sense of pride because they contributed, their efforts made impacts, pun intended, no pun intended, but they made impacts for the organization. But also, I think it gave them a level of confidence that despite whatever position title they hold, they are leaders, right? They can step up, they can collaborate, they can run projects, they can execute. And so I think all of those things really help in confidence, but also support the team and the morale that we have within the team.
Oh, that's so awesome. I have so many questions, and I'll probably call you after,
Yeah.
because that's very informative, and it sounds so helpful. And did you say now again that you received the award, or is it nominated? Because it is gonna win for sure.
So we submitted it, George. Thank you. We submitted it for FAPO, and we have been informed that we did receive a best practice. So it'll be
Yeah.
presented to our team at the FAPO annual conference. I don't know if there'll be an ability anymore for us to kind of have a short, just kind of presentation about the concept.
Yeah.
I know they used to do that in the past. I don't know if they got away from that in the interest of time, or if there might be a webinar opportunity. But we have been notified that we've received it. We'll just actually get the award at conference. But we're also going to be submitting it to NIGP for consideration of their agency advancement award, because we feel like this is a best practice, right? This is something that's scalable, that other people can emulate, and it really will help. It will help procurement operations if they have the ability to kind of create this structure and follow it, to really advance some initiatives, but also, empowering their staff to become leaders outside of their own role, right? And take on these responsibilities. And they take pride in it, George. Like, they really do take pride in it. And they did phenomenal work. They're still doing phenomenal work. It's going to allow us to identify some more impact projects that we can start implementing, right? As some roll off, we can put some others on. And so, like, it's such a feeding ground for innovation for us, for process improvement, but also to kind of, again, help develop our talent pool from within, and
Yeah.
give them those opportunities to step into leadership opportunities.
Yeah, I'm excited to hear about it. Whether FAPO, congratulations. It's definitely something,
You know,
hearing it for the first time. We would definitely want to utilize in Palm Bay, and um, yeah, to take it to NIGP too. I think that's gonna be great. So,
so fingers crossed, George. We're going to submit it. We're going to submit it. So fingers crossed. We'll see.
oh, it is going to for sure. That's awesome. That's awesome.
Thank you.
All right. So the next one is, how do you maintain transparency and open communication with your team to ensure a supportive work environment?
So, despite our organizational structure, right, that's hierarchy, right, our leadership team is not predicated on the traditional hierarchy that's set in a structure, whereby
Mm,
a specific chain of command must be followed if you want to talk to somebody, that you don't just have to go to your supervisor, and if they're not available, then you go up the chain. Like, we don't subscribe to that, in our procurement operation. Instead, our staff knows they can reach out to any of us, and whomever is available will jump in and lend assistance, right? We sometimes need to take fast, decision making. We don't have the ability to kind of just be waiting if somebody's in meeting and it takes hours. Like, we want to say, everybody's all hands on deck. We're working again alongside you, right? We're available to support you, whomever it is. I could have a buyer walk right over into my office and say, "Can I talk to you about this?" Right? They're not having to wait for the buyer supervisor if they're unavailable, or go to, up the chain. We're just, come on over. Let's talk about it. Let's jump in. They have confidence that whatever the challenge, that we're committed to supporting them timely to work through it, right? Whomever it might be. And we also try to leverage technology where we can, George. We use WebEx, chats. We use team chats to facilitate some of those collaborative discussions amongst the team, and as well with leadership, so that everybody can really benefit from those discussions and kind of those interactions. I think those are great tools that probably most of us have in our toolbox, and we really try to leverage those as much as we can to kind of create communication channels, because we are hybrid work schedule. So we're not always all in the office. We can't be in the office together, all of us, because we don't have the space to accommodate all of us. So, like, we have adopted a hybrid work schedule, and we have some people in the office each day. It's flexible. They can choose whatever days they want to be in. They have to be in just 2 days, and cover their meetings. But the rest of the time, we have to create channels to be able to communicate and collaborate, noting that some people might be virtual and some people might be in person. So those are really great tools to kind of keep those conversations flowing. We find that those spaces are collaborative amongst the teams themselves. Like, the goods and services team have one, the construction and professional services team has
mm,
one, the buying team has one, but then we have overall general groups where everybody's together. And so I think that having those different nuances allows for the communication flow to happen, even if we're not together in person. Um,
yeah.
if we have we don't call them challenges, we call them opportunities. I think it's kind of a perspective thing, right? Like, about, do I have a problem? Do I have a challenge? We have an opportunity, right? And an opportunity has presented itself. And so when those present themselves, regardless of where they are, if they're in person, if they're virtual, what we ask them to do is that they perform their own analysis of a situation, right? Don't just bring me the opportunity. I want you to be part of the solution development, right? So we want them to
Mhm.
assess the situation. We want them to think through all of the options, right? Weigh out the pros and cons for each option, formulate a recommendation, and present, their findings based on their analysis, right? And so then we have a collaborative discussion. And I think working through that, it's another developmental opportunity, right? Because they need to critically think about things. They need to try to anticipate what questions might be asked of their analysis, right? And so working through those options, they identify what they feel is the best solution, and then we get together and have conversation. And many times it's a collaborative effort, really, among the team. Which essentially leads to organic team building, right? Because they're in it together, and so they're like, look, what's the situation? Let's think about it from all of our different angles. And they really do tag team it sometimes. And so it's not just kind of one person unto themselves. They take pride in kind of assessing situations, thinking about all the perspectives, and really trying to come to a sound recommendation. And I think that's really healthy. There's so many opportunities, George, on any given day for us to help develop our teams, right? To prevent growth opportunities. And I think that doing those types of strategies, implementing those, I think helps just develop them, but also gets them invested in the
Yeah.
decision making process and understands the rationale, right, behind the decisions that are made, right? Have you considered this? What about that, right? Like, we want them to be trained to kind of consider all those options and think through them. And I think that's a really strong approach to also building confidence in them, right? But also knowing that they are an integral part of the decision making process. I think all of those are great things to kind of help maintain that work culture, that we want to make sure that we're preserving, and that everyone's heard, everyone's contributing, and we're talking through decision making together.
Yeah. Gosh, I will tell you, I love the fact of what you mentioned about, you know, being able to go to anybody on the team, because I think I try to be very intentional with that, because it requires you to remove your ego.
Mhm.
Um, and I think that's important in leadership, because um, if you're able to say like, hey, this isn't the onus or responsibility, is ours as a team. I think, again, you definitely get the buy-in, like you mentioned. Um, People have an investment in it, and also too, like the collaboration, like you mentioned. I think it definitely is going to foster it. But I know for me, I definitely want to be intentional of saying like, hey, uh, I don't care if it's, the contract specialist, the agent, myself, the procurement manager. None of us should feel like, or get our egos involved where only I can answer that question.
Yeah, and I think it's important from like just from a trust perspective, right?
Yeah.
Exactly what I'm there for, right? Like, it's not about the title. I'm not about that personally myself, right? Like, I started as an entry level person, 25 years ago, and I worked my way up. But like, I've been in those positions, and I appreciate the ability to just walk into somebody's office and be able to have a conversation with them, and not worry about, did I follow a certain chain of command. And there might be
Yeah,
organizations that flow that way, and I get it, right? Whatever works for everybody. But I think,
for
like
sure.
like we're so proud, George, to have a great healthy work culture, right? Like we are fiercely protective of our work culture. We don't want toxicity, we don't want drama, we don't want anyone feeling like they're not safe and supported, and that they can come to anybody and have a conversation about whatever challenge they're having. Like, that's the culture that we want to make sure that we're maintaining for people, because it's important. And so you're right, like, it does cause you to kind of set your ego aside. But again, like, I'll reemphasize what I stated earlier in your questions. I'm working alongside them, right? Like
Hmm.
my title is not of a peer, but I am working alongside them. I'm invested in every single procurement they're working on, right? Like, and I want to understand what their challenges is, what their thought process is to go into some of the decisions that they're recommending, right? Like, let's talk about it, because I think it's just so important, George, for however long I'm going to have a team member, right? They might aspire to go be a CPO somewhere. They might aspire to go to another organization that's going to help them grow developmentally. I understand that, right? But as long as I have them, for however long that I have them, like I'm really invested in their growth, right? And so I think that they know that, like
Yeah,
I'm very clear and transparent with that. I'm passionate about that. In case you probably picked up on that, right? Like I think
of course.
I think that's our responsibility as leaders, quite frankly. Like
Yeah.
I feel like our responsibility is to do that, and create that environment. And if it doesn't exist, George, it's not impossible, right? Like it might be harder if you have kind of like a not so healthy work culture that you
Yeah.
invest, right? That you walk into. That's different than having one and maintaining it, right? So like I understand that, but I think as leaders we have to kind of think about where are the connections? What is going to move the needle, and let people know that I'm in it with them every single day, working through things, and be able to build that trust and a sound relationship. I think that's our responsibility as leaders.
Yeah, absolutely. Which is why I think this discussion is so great because um, when you talk about leadership, what I want to put out, and I think it's the message that we need to have, is that there is a premium put on the work environment and the quality of it. And you know, I just think that more leaders should, and I'm not saying that they don't, but I think as you just articulated, just it is really about having a quality work environment, and that's about collaborating and working alongside your team. And I saw a video the other day, and I thought it was great. It was someone saying, "I know that I'm in the right place when my leader says these three things," and it was, "I'm sorry, I don't know, and what do you think?" And I thought that was profound, and I thought it was simple, but I thought it was great.
Hmm.
And a lot of that, you know, is everything that you mentioned. Is really like putting the emphasis on like we're working together. What can I do to foster your growth, to help build you, and to make that investment in you? And um, yeah, I just that's why I knew this was going to be great because this is something that I want more people to see. Because traditionally in procurement, we're very technical folks. You know, you'll get someone to do a bid, you'll get someone to know the difference in amendments and contracts and all the things that makes us great. But this portion of it, I think, is not talked about enough. So thank you.
Yeah, and what I'd say, George, is it's a responsibility thing, I feel like, right? Like, and we're all family, and we learn from each other. And NIGP is principled on lifelong learning, right? Like that's their principle of their pathways and their certification, like that we are lifelong learners. We subscribe to that. And it's true, right? And so like I tell people, I learn every single day. I learn from every single procurement that we have. I learn from all of the people that I'm fortunate to be surrounded with, right? Like I learn every single day. I've not stopped learning. I don't know everything, right? Like, and I think, if you kind of get to that, humble perspective with your team, it resonates too, right? Because I'm not perfect. I don't know everything. Like I might have served in these volunteer opportunities and done some leadership things, but it doesn't mean that I know everything about leadership, right? It doesn't mean that I know everything about procurement. And regardless of how many times we do a procurement, there's always a nuance to it that we didn't encounter previously, right? And we're like, wow, like how has that never come up before? Like we
Yeah.
we just learn from every single experience, and then we have to develop a strategy. So I think like, but that's what's great about procurement, right? Is that
Hmm.
it's not the same day every day. Like there's always things that we're coming up against going, wow, like that's new. And so we're all learning, and I'm not immune from that. And I tell my people, like, I learn from you guys every single day because it is the truth.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree. I definitely agree. All right. The next one. We just got two more.
Okay.
Um, in your experience, what are the key elements of a healthy work culture, like we've been talking about, and how do you cultivate it?
So for me, it starts with really building the trusting relationship with the team. I think that's just foundational. I think that it has to be foundational. I think that if you're going to be in a work family, you need to have those relationships, and they need to be principled on trust. So like be authentically caring for people, and when I say that, I mean, get to know them as the whole person and not just the work person. What do they aspire to do professionally, but like get to know them as a person. Like what resonates with them, what motivates them, what are they interested in, like what concerns them, what are all of those things. Like be inquisitive and ask about those things so that you fully understand the whole person and not just a component of the person. um we really focus on maintaining a highly supportive environment where team members feel safe to ask questions, right? Safe space. You ask any question that you want, you ask as many questions as you have, right? And we're going to
Mm,
talk through the challenges, we're going to work towards those solutions collaboratively, and we're committed to fostering growth really for every single team member, for all team members, not just some team members. I think like equitability amongst that development like is critical. It's something we subscribe to. Um, think about your first day, George. Anywhere that you've worked your first day, right? Everybody remembers their first day at work. They remember how they felt, right? Did they feel
yeah.
overwhelmed? Did they feel supported? Did they feel welcomed? Were they like questioning their decision to come to an organization, right? Like everybody remembers their first day at work. And so we're always mindful of that experience. We want it to be a great one, right? We want people to be confident in the decision they made to come join our team. We really want to aspire to be a destination that people want to come work for. And I think that we're there to an extent. I think that people are happy when they come. I know that they're happy when they come work for us. I think that people have aspirations to work for Orange County. I've heard several people say that, which is great. That's where we want to be. We want to be a destination, right? I think that's great for recruitment. I think that's great for retention, like all of those things that procurement organizations struggle with. So from day one, we ensure that they feel welcome, that they're supported, and that they're set up for success, right? Like we have onboarding strategies. It's not just here are the resources, go do great things, right? Like that's not really setting them up for success. We need to be intentional. And so when we go through all of that, George, and we're mindful of their first day and how they've felt through the onboarding and the level of support they get, that it's a safe space. Ask all your questions. Don't worry about too many questions. I've hit my limit. What we ask of them is that they pay it forward and emulate that for the next new team member, right? And so then I think
Mm,
that's nurturing the culture, right? Like remember how you were treated, remember how you were welcome, where you were supported, like that everybody dug in and answered your questions, and do that for the next person, because I think that then kind of maintains that culture of support, and I think that that's really something to be proud of. I'm very proud of that. Do we make mistakes along the way, George? We do. I mean, I think every procurement organization, makes mistakes from time to time, right?
for
But
sure.
when it happens, we use it as a learning experience, right? We talk through the situation, we identify what are the opportunities we could mitigate against, it reoccurring in the future. Like that's a solid development strategy for us, and it creates another collaborative effort, to problem solving. So I think there just are a lot of touch points when it comes to thinking about, elements that you use to have a healthy work culture, cultivating your people. Is everything perfect and rosy every day? It's not, right? Their
Hmm.
challenges are going to happen. We're gonna make mistakes, but what do we do to rebound from those? How do we rebound from those and make sure that they don't reoccur, right? Like in a supportive way. I think that's again leading with empathy, right? Like, do people need to be accountable? Yes. I'm ultimately accountable for all of my team's decisions, and they know that, right? Like they take pride in their work. They want to do a great job, and I think that they do a great job.
Right.
That doesn't mean things won't happen, but how do we respond to it? Like I think that's really an important thing. I think that really sets a tone for your work culture and supporting
Hmm.
your team members.
I have a follow-up. And so this would be for the individual that's managing or leading, and because I've gotten this question, that maybe not the most personable, as far as like trying to reach out to team members, trying to get to know and develop relationships with their team members, and they're very straight to the point. They're like they go about their work. I just want to go ahead. I want to set the standard and go about doing my job, because I get that question a lot. So I want to hear your thoughts on what does that individual do so that it comes off as authentic, as you mentioned. Any words of advice for that person who struggles with not being so personable and cultivating those relationships?
Yeah, I think it's a tough one, George, right? Because you can't fake authenticity, right? Like you authentically care about working through these things in a way, or you don't, right? And everybody's personality is different, so I understand that might be a
Yeah.
challenge. And some people, more straightforward, direct kind of thing, right? And like I've
Uh-huh.
I've certainly had those leaders in my life as well, right? Like and you kind of learn to kind of navigate those things, but again, I just don't think you can fake authenticity. I think
You
people
can't.
just have to be mindful. You got to just kind of be mindful of what drives and motivates your people, right? Like do you have an opportunity to be a little bit flexible and maybe open that door a little bit more, and not be so rigid in those things? Maybe, right? Like, I mean, it's intrinsic to each person if they're willing to do that. But I think there's a lot of resources out there. There's a lot of studies that kind of talk about leading with empathy, that kind of support that it's a strong leadership principle, right? Like, and that
Yeah.
it reaps great rewards to your team, right? Like, but you're right. Like, personalities are different with people. So the only thing I can offer, George, is that just to kind of be mindful of the benefits of that approach, right? And be willing to be flexible and open yourself up. Maybe people are going to be more vulnerable, right? Like, maybe it means somebody needs to be a little bit more vulnerable and kind of open that door, and not be so rigid in their tactic, right? In their approach to people. But I think that's also healthy for our own selves to grow in that way, right? I
Yeah.
think we need to challenge ourselves as leaders. We don't just need to challenge our team. We need to challenge ourselves and grow in those ways. And it's not just learning technical procurement practices. How do we grow as a leader? Right. Like,
Hmm.
and so some of those principles we need to kind of be mindful of and say, well, could I be more giving of this type of strategy? Would it be beneficial for me as a leader, and also beneficial to my team? I think, like, being introspective in that way, George, is
Yeah.
healthy. Like, it's not a bad thing, right? Like, I guess that's what I have to offer.
No, that's great, and I definitely agree. You can't fake authenticity, and but also too, there's certain things like you can try to implement a strategy. Like, one that I've researched quite a bit is just like little check-ins with all of your team members. If it's 2 minutes, being intentional about that. It doesn't necessarily mean you have to be the most personable person. You don't have to develop the best relationship, but just that quick little bit of quality time and checking up with two members, and you doing it every single week. If you're not able to do it every single day, I think goes a long way. With depositing in that relational bank, because you're gonna need to make a withdrawal, as I heard before, at some point in time. And that I agree with you that that's a difficult one, but it's something I think leaders can definitely do a better job. If it doesn't come as easily to you, as far as being personable and developing relationships, it's just another aspect that you can work on without necessarily being fake.
Yeah.
So
I think for those people, George, kind of to your point, like, when you're doing a check-in with people, even if it's to talk about an opportunity, right? Like lead with a question. How are you doing today? Like, is everything
mhm,
okay? How are you feel? Like, even if it's just a simple check-in like that, instead of just getting to the meat of the matter, right? Like and then
for
at the end of the
sure.
conversation, does this make sense? Are you agreeable with the approach and everything? Like, to kind of just say, like, I'm interested in your input and your feedback on this. I don't want to be the decision maker. I want us to kind of come to this together, right? Like, I think that also can go a long way with that, without having to kind of like break some sort of boundary that maybe somebody's not comfortable to do, but
Yeah.
just engage on a personal level and say, how are you doing? Are you okay with this? Does this make sense? Are we good on this? Does it, are we agreeable to this? Like, I think there are certain ways that you could do it you know, without being one end of the spectrum to the other.
All right. I think what we both can agree on too, and I think most of the listeners too, is that like you just have to want to do it. You have to want to
Yeah.
put yourself in the position to at least try. I think that's the
Yeah.
premise behind it, is that leadership is definitely about trying. And as much as we talk about it, and I hope the conversation continues, it's not about you. It is, but it isn't, right? Um, so
And George, like, we were all a day one leader, right? Just like we were all a day one employee, we were all a day one leader. Like at
yeah.
some point we stepped into a leadership position, and what sort of resources were available to help support us or what weren't. Like, we always think about who led us, right? Like, what were the great principles of the leaders that we want to emulate, and what were the principles, maybe not so much, right? That we said, if we were in this position, we wouldn't do this or that, right? Learn from those lessons, learn how you were treated, and make sure that you're treating others in the way that you would want to be treated. Maybe not the way that you were treated, or maybe the way that you were, like, it really just depends. But I think you can learn from strong leaders, and I think you can also learn from not so strong leaders, right? Of things that you would probably say, what, I wouldn't take this approach with my team if I'm ever in such a position. So I think, like there are tons of things you can read about, there are tons of classes you can take, but I think you got to kind of like go with your heart on how did you feel in those situations? Like, did you feel supported? And if not, you probably want to emulate a way that you make sure that people or feel supported in the way that maybe you weren't, or conversely, maybe the way that you were, you want to say, I want to continue because that felt good for me. That helped me to grow as a professional. Right. Like, so it's very introspective, I think. Right. But
Yeah,
but I think that's part of it.
I agree. I definitely agree. And here's the last one, which I think is we segue into it perfectly. Is what advice would you give in trying to foster that quality work environment, or any advice at all for anybody who is starting their leadership journey, or they're in their leadership journey and they're trying to seek to get better. They don't have the confidence. They may feel a little ashamed to reach out and say like, hey, how do I work on my leadership? Because it isn't a topic that, somebody is more willingly to go ahead and say, hey, I struggle in this area. I think a lot of us in the procurement community will send out a message to say, hey, have you ever done this bid before? Or, have you encountered this? What are you doing for tariffs? But um, that that question about like, hey, like, what do you do as far as leadership? How do you reach and how do you impact your team? It's not something that I think is readily available throughout the community as I would like. So anything
Yeah, I
that you
mean
might
it's
add?
a great point, George, right? Like we can talk technically about a lot of things all day long, but when it gets into some of those softer things, are people willing to kind of reach out and be vulnerable in that space and say, how do you do this, or what about this? Like, so I really do appreciate that you're having this segment, because I think it's an important topic that maybe isn't so much at the forefront of trainings, like, right, like technical trainings and things like that. But
Yes.
I think my best advice, outside of getting a mentor, and kind of to your point, like even with a mentor, maybe people might be uncomfortable to kind of feel vulnerable to ask a question specifically of somebody. But a mentor, I think, is always a strong thing. You can have personal or professional mentors, and sometimes they're both. But I think having somebody to kind of bounce those things off of that you respect and trust is really a great resource. And particularly for people that are kind of ascending into leadership roles, like maybe to have somebody that has either taken on that journey or is going through that journey at the same time, it's always helpful to have somebody to talk to about things. But I think my advice would be to consider a strategy that leads with empathy and
Mm.
intentionality. We talked about being intentional before, right? Like, and having those touch points and thinking about, the impacts that you can have on somebody's development as a professional. Take the time to understand what motivates each of the team members, because each of their unique, they each have unique needs, right? They're all
Yeah.
different. It's not a one size fits all. It's not a canned approach. Like, you have different personalities, you have different motivators of people, or different things that they're going on in life, right? Like, so understand, what makes them unique and what really drives them, I think, is an important thing to kind of make sure that you're understanding as well. Um, Try to recognize and leverage their strengths and create opportunities for growth where you can. Because I think that even in our organizations, regardless of a specific procurement, sometimes we have the ability as leaders to give them exposure to things, right? Like, I always say, hey, if you want to really understand what's important to our board's agenda, come with me to a board meeting and watch the dialogue that happens. Or if you don't
Mhm.
want to come, if you're not comfortable, listen in, like log in and listen and understand what our leaders are thinking through, right? Because I think that really gives you a great idea of your own organization's agenda. What are the things that are important to your leadership? What sort of initiatives are coming down? It really shouldn't just be for me to know that, George, right? Like, it should be for my team to understand that as well. So, like, I don't force them to listen or go watch it, but I encourage them to, right? It's
Right.
ultimately up to them if they have a desire to kind of be that person learning about those aspects of it or not. But I think to give them opportunities and expose them to them for growth is really something that we really should try to make sure that we're fostering where we can. For those people, George, that aspire to be CPOs somewhere, like, they probably are going to be the people that are going to say, I'm going to take advantage of those growth opportunities. I'm going to listen, and I want to understand what leadership, is concerned about. I want to understand their analysis of things, right? So, like, it really depends on, again, the unique person, right? And
Yeah.
to not be forceful, but to just give them exposures where you can. Celebrate the wins. Of course, we want to celebrate wins. We want to be supportive of people. Every year, George, I do a year in review. And so every single year throughout the year, I'm constantly logging things that we accomplish as a group or as an individual, right? And so this could be process improvements that we've accomplished. It could be awards that our team was recognized for. It could be service awards for people that have, they've now received their 20-year service award or things like that, right? Like it could be anything like that. It could be somebody that got certified. It could be somebody that completed a training course, like a specialty certificate. It could be all of those things. We're tracking them. I am tracking them throughout the entire year and I'm logging them. And so like what I do every January is I put together a slide deck. And when we do our staff meeting, we pause and we take an hour or so to kind of celebrate the accomplishments of the year before, right? Because day over day, something can happen and you can say, okay, so-and-so got a certification, congratulations. And you kind of move on with life, right? But if you look at the totality of what your team can accomplish over the course of a year, it's phenomenal, George, right? But if you don't take the time to really document that and celebrate that, like it's a proud moment. Everybody that sits in that room that watches that slide deck can be proud of the accomplishments that they've made as individuals, but as a team, right? Like, and so I think like when people aspire to be in a healthy culture, in procurement operation, I think those things, it does low cost. It doesn't cost anything for me to do that, George. It takes my time to log it, right? When I'm aware of things that were accomplished, it takes my time to put together a slide deck and it takes my time to present it at a staff meeting, but the ROI is immeasurable, right? And if we have new team members coming on, I invite them to come. Like sometimes we have staff members that are onboarding and they're not yet on our team. And I say, please come to the staff meeting because I want them to see what they're walking into. I want them to be proud of the environment, right? Like, and so I think that what I could say for anybody that's walking into a leadership role is think of ways that you can create an environment where people are proud to be a part of, right? Like, and so low cost things like that, like I think they make a huge difference. And so for those things, I'd say, think of those things, right? Like be mindful of those things and celebrate where you can, celebrate often. And I think most importantly, George, I just say be consistent in your values and your actions. That trust is built over time, right? Like it's not going to be a trusting relationship day one. It takes time. It takes intention, right? It takes caring. But a positive work environment thrives when leaders really model the culture that they want to create, right? And so I think that's probably the most important lesson I would leave people with is to, again, be mindful of that you're the role model and that if you want people to kind of subscribe to this type of culture, you need to be leading the way.
Yeah, so important, so important. Read something the other day. I'm always reading some miscellaneous, but so guy said when I became a dad, he said I had to make two choices: what kind of parent I want to be, and also what kind of child I wanted to raise. And I liken leadership to that a lot too. Is that what kind of leader you want to be, and then also like what kind of employees would you like to create? Because, and I think you mentioned it earlier, is that um, so much of the work culture and like who sits at the leadership position, we model, and whether we know it subconsciously or consciously, they're part of like how we go about things. Whether it's a good leader or a bad leader, um, it's definitely a part of us. So I cannot thank you enough. Um, I really appreciate it. Let me give you some more flowers because you've done so much. You've always been super helpful for me. You've created leaders. I love how you go about with your work environment and just all around. I can't say enough about you, and I hope people really um, pay attention to the things that you've said so far today because I think they're immensely helpful. Um, and I just think the world of you, and I appreciate you. So thank you very much.
Thank you, George. I appreciate you having me and having this important discussion. I think it's really critical for people to kind of think on this level. And when they're thinking about their own trajectory, like thinking about what it's going to take for them to want to be an effective leader in a healthy environment. Like there are so many people I talk to, George, when I'll say raise of hands when I'm doing sessions, how many people have been in a toxic work environment? And you'd probably be surprised by this, but at least 75% of the hands go up. Right. Like, and that's telling, right? Like it is telling
Yeah.
and it's impactful and it's sad. Right. But what can we do to not be a part of somebody raising their hand and saying that, right? Like I take that to heart and I don't ever want any of my people to be amongst those people that are raising their hand. And I think, nor do I want to be somebody that's raising my hand, right? We all have a decision where we work. We spend a lot of time together. We need to make it the the best opportunity that we can for everybody. I take that responsibility very seriously for my people. Like I'm responsible, like you said, you have a child, right? You're responsible for them. They're not my children, but I am responsible for their growth and their development. And I take that seriously. And I think leaders should always be mindful of that. So thank you for having me. I appreciate the conversation.
Likewise. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Until next time, because then I have you on again.
All right.